Hello and welcome to the Family Business. I'm Joe Castiglione Jr. alongside Isaac Stoops. Happy week indeed. It is a brand new week. It is a brand new day here at Center Scoop Studios. It's been an interesting one. I'll tell you that. It's been an interesting week since Saturday. My appendix decided it wanted to leave my body. So Monday went to the ER, had some pains, and then Tuesday got it removed. Shout out Tommy Cook, friend scooper and a friend of Mr. Edward Radosevich. So he's a great anesthesiologist. Fantastic. Put me right under, right out. Shout out Mercy Hospital. But yeah, appendix, not very fun. I thought the game Saturday sucked enough, and then my appendix said.
No, way to kick a man while he's down. They had to play operation on you.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I know. I thought I was going through a bad dream. That and getting stuck on the dart. So whoever was riding the dart after the game too, if you were on there, comment down below because I got stuck on it for 2 hours. I will never be riding the dart again.
That's unbelievable, actually. That's like I would have had a panic attack.
People were banging on the windows. We're already miserable.
You're tired. A way to sober up, and you're tired. It's hot.
There's no water. You couldn't even sit down. We were standing the whole time.
Yep.
So not a great week, but you know what? You know what is great? Saturday's weather is going to be phenomenal. Mm-hmm. You know what else is phenomenal? The quality and the people over at HomeField Apparel. HomeField Apparel is the official OU apparel sponsor of SoonerScoop.com. If you head over to HomeFieldApparel.com, use code SCOOP, you're going to get 15% off your first order. Isaac, you're actually repping the jacket, the coach's jacket right now. It's
on
beautiful.
Here. The Bomber's back in stock. Now that it's going to get a little colder here in a couple of weeks. This coach's jacket is back in stock. It was sold out for a while, but really nice material. It's actually kind of layered on the inside, so waterproof. I'll definitely go get you one. I really like it.
I wore the pullover last week. If you go watch last week's episode with the classic OU and the schooner, fantastic quality, all the retro stuff. I mean, there's the one I wore last week, the crew neck. It's $65. That with the code, go snag you that. I'm telling you, you like that, go snag a couple more shirts because it's going to get a little chilly, hopefully. We're finally going to get fall in Oklahoma. Yeah. So the great people over at HomeField Apparel, if you go over to homefieldapparel.com, use code SCOOP, you're going to get 15% off. Great stuff. Great stuff. Mm-hmm. So South Carolina week, the offense is always the talk of the town. It's been the talk of the town probably since, I don't know, August, since last Alamo Bowl. Yeah. But we brought on Paul Thompson to join us. Paul has a really good point of view. Of course, a former Oklahoma quarterback. He's a guy who's actually been benched, came back. He's gone through a lot of,
switched positions. I mean, he's got a crazy career.
A lot of significant circumstances that he's fought through, and they actually had a lot of success too. So we brought him on the show to talk a little bit about his career, talk about what he's seen from both quarterbacks, the mindset for somebody like Jackson Arnold or Michael Hawkins who's developing through this offense. How much can they change the offense? And we talked about a number of things, even a fun little AD story at the end. Mm-hmm. At the end, that was a really good story as well. And so we had Paul on the show. Fantastic. I think you guys should take a listen. We're going to take you to the interview right now. We now welcome in former Oklahoma quarterback Paul Thompson to the show. Paul, thanks for coming on.
Appreciate you guys having me. Isaac, I know it's been a minute, man. So good to see you and excited to be on here.
For sure.
Probably you're a little bigger than the last time I saw you, right?
I know. I don't know. I would have been like 7 or 8.
Yeah, it was crazy. You and Drake, obviously, just running around on the field and all that, and then. I watched you guys a little bit when you guys were at North. And so, but yeah, to see you guys all grown up now and adults is wild. I got twins of my own. Oh, yeah. And so, they're my twin daughters. They're 10, but, yeah, I remember you guys y'all had to be 4, 3, 4, 5.
In 2005, would it have been?
Yeah, because I was there 02 to 06. I mean, there was
he saw you.
I was 3, yeah, in 02,
yeah. So that's wild.
It's been cool because we had the Venable Boys on one episode, and so we're talking about all those shenanigans that transpired through there, and all the kids growing up, and it was kind of fun age because everybody was the same age growing up, all the kids.
We had a terror squad for sure.
Yeah. Coach Gundy's son.
Oh yeah,
just huge now.
Yeah, KC.
Yeah, he's coaching at Oklahoma State now. Yeah, he's a volunteer up there. Well, Paul, the topic of the town, Saturday didn't really go as planned, and so now everybody's looking at like where Oklahoma's turning to. So, from your point of view, what have you seen from both quarterbacks that Oklahoma's played this year between Jackson Arnold and Michael Hawkins? What have you liked from both? What if you feel like gives them the best opportunity forward for this offense to succeed out of both quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, we were at the so obviously one first of all, Jackson Arnold, coming in, great quarterback, heralded Gatorade, Player of the Year, all the accolades. Oklahoma's kind of been known for that, getting the best of the best, right? And so, obviously had some bowl game experience at the end of last season, and then was had to come into a depleted receiving core this year, and
Say the
again
least.
we went to that Tennessee game, and you just never really quite saw the explosiveness. I think a lot of it had to do with that. Obviously, there's some deficiencies at the O line as well, and so it makes it tough, for a young quarterback, which he is, even though he has some experience and has been in the system here for a while now. It makes it tough. Your trust, your recognition, getting through your reads, everything's a little bit quicker than it would typically be if you had some time. And so, one of the things though that hurt him in that Tennessee game were the turnovers, right? Especially versus a team like that. You got to capitalize on those opportunities. At home, we knew we can't. There was little room for error from the get-go with Tennessee. And so to have the turnovers there in that first half that we had when we were in scoring position a couple of those times is what really were the big mistakes that I think were his control, that he didn't, that he could have done better. And so obviously, the way that game played out, we had to, try something else, again, especially with the turnovers early on. And Hawkins, came in, had that big play, explosive capability that you just didn't see with Jackson Arnold, right? You knew what he could do, but you never saw the opportunities down the field. You never saw him take off with his feet. And then right out of the gate, Hawkins just brought some excitement. And so, finished that game. Obviously, it was a little bit too little, too late with where we were at with Tennessee. But you saw some glimpses and some flashes of, oh, okay, this is kind of exciting. Some of his runs, obviously, him diving into the end zone at times and just sacrificing his body. Those are big, just team camaraderie, trust. Hey, we'll fight for this guy, type of plays. And so you roll that into the Auburn game, where he really kind of came out and showed what he could do on both ends, right? From his running ability right out the gate to some big plays down the field late in that game to kind of seal the deal. Obviously, big turnover on the defensive side there. But then to go in, that 2-point conversion, where again, he just sacrifices his body to put us up by 3. I saw a video of him getting, carried, in the locker room. And so those are things that, intangibles, even outside of the X's and O's, that you got to have, especially for maybe an inexperienced, or not maybe, but definitely an inexperienced offense with the offensive line, with the receivers that are out. I'd say on both ends, though, for both of those guys, it's tough when you're operating in an offense that is just, you don't have all your weapons. I mean, Burks was our best offensive player, right? I mean, he was a star. He was shining. He was making plays out of nothing. And, you have a couple, second downs or third downs where you just dink it to him on a slant. He takes it to the house. It's a whole different story, right? From a confidence level, from a excitement level. And so, you can't take away what those players, on the offense that we're missing, could bring to the equation.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen very often at OU, but how do you bounce back from getting pulled like that? What would your advice be
To a guy like Jackson Arnold, for somebody who started the season,
Yeah.
and then maybe Hawkins, depending on what happens this Saturday, maybe Jackson goes back in. So what would you tell a guy like Jackson Arnold who started the season and then gets pulled and then has to play again at a high level?
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I was in a similar situation going back to 05, where I started the season, and that very first game, we ended up losing to TCU and had to get pulled. I'd say the dynamics, everything's completely different than it was, freaking 20 years ago. I'm feeling so old now.
It
Just
doesn't
from
feel
the
like
aspect of
that.
NIL, right? From an NIL standpoint, and then from the whole transfer rules and even the redshirting rules, right, are all different now than they were then. So there's some different decisions that have to be made. In regards to what he wants to do financially for his team. At the end of the day, though, as long as you're putting that helmet on and that jersey on, you got to be ready to play, right? So now I'm sure they've had discussions, between his family and the coaching staff, because again, you have that red shirt year with him just playing 4 years now. So what are the instances or what are the circumstances that allow him to come into a game? Does he want that? Does he want to save that, transfer, and again, have an opportunity to start somewhere else? What have the coaches told him that, hey, he still has an opportunity to be the starter here, right? So those are discussions. So for Arnold, he's got to prepare week in and week out. I mean, it's a physical game. You're going to have injuries. There's going to be, things that happen within a game. And so the last thing you want to do is have your opportunity pop back up and you look foolish out there because you've had a bad attitude and been pouting for the last, 4 or 5 weeks. Right. So my advice to him is stay ready to play. He looks like he's a guy ready to play. He's got his helmet on, his mouthpiece in. And so even that's kind of how I was too. Even when I knew I wasn't playing or, wasn't starting, man, I wasn't one of them backups with a ball cap on. I'm like, man, I got my helmet. I got my mouthpiece ready to go. I'm as involved as I can be on this team. And so he just needs to continue to do that. And when his time's called, he's got to be ready to play. And again, I'm sure there's been discussions outside of what we know in regards to how that wants to play out when necessary, but he's got to stay ready.
For sure. And the way things have transpired, he may, Hawkins has had good moments, but he may still be the quarterback of the future. And so he's got to recognize that. I'm sure those conversations have transpired behind closed doors because that's just the reality of it, behind the redshirt rule and the transfer opportunities that are ahead of him. But he's got to stay ready. I mean, it might be this Saturday, especially even before Michael struggled last Saturday. I mean, the whole offense struggled. Don't want to put it all on Michael, but struggled last Saturday. You kind of got to think Michael Hawkins plays in such a manner that he throws his body around the field that there was a good chance Jackson was going to have to go in. So it's going to be really interesting to see, if he plays this Saturday, what his mindset's going to be going forward, and this team just trying to turn things around. Like in 2006, you came in, you replaced, with Bomar's departure, you came in, you guys started 3-2, but then you go on to win 8 games in the Big 12 championship. What's your advice for a team that's coming out of adversity? I mean, you did have Adrian Peterson on the team. You did have a lot of experience in yourself, so it's a little bit different dynamic. And you had Trent Williams. He turned out to be pretty good, considering he's still playing. Yeah. And so you had guys like that. So it is a little different, I know. But what do you remember about that team that was able just to take a full 180 and head in the right direction? What was the mindset about that team, and what would be your advice to this Oklahoma team?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a whirlwind heading into that season. It was just a couple weeks out from the start of the season whenever that decision was made, and the whole Bomar situation. And again, I was playing receiver because I had asked to move to that position my junior year just because I was like, hey, I'm done backing up. I backed up Jason White enough, right? He kept coming back, and I kept backing him up. And, man, I want to play ball. I'm trying to play ball. So if it's not going to be quarterback, obviously Rhett was 2 years younger than me. It was going to be his team. I said, well, let me be the receiver, and maybe there's even some opportunity at the next level for me at that position with my size and all that. So it was a complete whirlwind, right? A month or two outside of the season, I got to get back into quarterback mode. We had a young receiving core at that time, the Malcolm Kellys, Joaquin Iglesias, Juan Rankings. He was more of a veteran there. And so it was like, hey, we got to go play ball and get ready and figure this thing out. And so, yeah, we had some obstacles early on, one of those even being the Oregon game where we actually won that game because of that onside kick that Alan Patrick is still holding up that we recovered. But obviously that's just another part of overcoming obstacles. And then Red River game lost that season as well. And so, yeah, bam, out the gate. Then, we roll into Big 12 play versus Iowa State and lose Adrian Peterson. Right. So, AD, best running back in the country, and bam, he's gone. Right. So, just a lot of things. But throughout that season, we always had, goals that we set, not only just, winning the Big 12, but, early on having national championship aspirations. Always we want to beat Texas. We want to beat Oklahoma State. So I've always said, and then you guys know that, it's week by week, right, when it comes to a season. And there's goals that you're still trying to achieve, even though on the outside looking in, it's just all the sky is falling, everything's over. But there's still individual goals, there's still team goals that are in place that, they want to accomplish moving forward. Even if that's just improving, right? When it comes to your film room, getting better. Jackson Arnold, what do you need to improve from this week to the next week? Hawkins, what is it? Hopefully we get some receivers back. We can expand maybe some offensive play calling. And so there's always little goals that kind of keep you motivated within the season. And so, everything, it's not all done. We got a tough run. This will be, as far as teams we're playing, it's going to be one of our toughest tests in the last, I don't know when, a long time. As far as who we'll be facing here to kind of round out, conference play. I know we get a little Maine that pops in there, but
thank God,
and a bye week.
Yeah, and so it's just stay the course, right? You got to continue to improve. You got to you have to continue to find small wins, and you got to get better. If anything, you got to look at your team from week to week and say, hey, we got to be better than we were last week. And I know this coaching staff is implementing those types of things, and has goals that are set that are still achievable. And so, you just got to stay the course. You can't quit. You can't give up. You got to look at your teammate across from you or next to you and play for them and play for that, that OU symbol on your helmet and the pride of this program.
Was that, you mentioned it, that 06 game with Alan Patrick. Do you think that was somewhat of a turning point for you guys? And is that just something this team needs right now, is, a turning point around the corner going into such a gauntlet?
That Texas A&M game.
Yeah,
Alan Patrick.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we got a tough road ahead, but there's no reason we can't win. We can still win, even against some of these top ranked teams, right? I mean, it's day to day, it's game to game, right? The ball bouncing one way or another, or getting somebody back that we didn't have before, someone making a big play at a critical point in the game, which just completely turns everything around. I mean, the season, games are about momentum, but even seasons are about that momentum. Kind of like you say, whether it's good or bad, there can be a big win that propels us, that, gives us confidence moving forward. At the same time too, you can lose some people. There can be a lot of distractions, especially, a younger team that's maybe hearing some things that you didn't hear a year ago. Yeah. Right. And that's also been another thing is, when I'm talking to, younger guys or getting asked for advice, the players the players are the ones that make that university. You can't just expect to show up. You can't just show up because you got the OU on your helmet and you got the, Sooners across your chest, right? You can't, and you also can't expect the next person to go above and beyond. Mm-hmm. You got to take ownership of it. It's your team. I don't care if you're a true freshman or you're a 5th, 6th year senior. Whatever happened last season is all over. And that should be even more apparent now with the transfer portal, because we're dealing with a whole bunch of different people. It was way different back when I was playing because it was the same squad. We just lost the seniors and the guys that left early, right? Yeah. Now you got a whole new squad and we did, we had a little bit of JUCO, but now it's every year you could have, 30 new guys on the team, right? So you can't just show up and say, hey, this is OU. Everyone's going to start shivering and shaking in their boots. No, you better get up and prepare and get out there and play ball.
It's still hard for me to wrap my head around that. So Saturday against OU Texas, there wasn't a single player on the offense that started last year in that game.
It's pretty crazy.
All 11 were new.
Wild.
Yeah.
And that's
Wow.
1 year. We're not talking about a couple years out. We're talking about 1 year. And so just due to that nature, it's just really interesting. And because of the change in quarterbacks, they've kind of had to, I mean, I don't know what the offensive identity is. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if anybody does, to be quite honest with you. But when you replaced Bomar, you guys did have a fall camp to mold that offense. You had to come back from receiver. You had to go to quarterback, but they had a full fall camp to mold that offense around you. How much do you think these coordinators, this offense, can mold an offense in a week or two? Because they're obviously not finding success with what they're doing right now. You can't completely go back to the drawing board in the middle of the season, but how much can you change in just a couple of weeks or even a week?
I mean, when you start the season, all the quarterbacks work together. So whether it's Jackson Arnold, Michael Hawkins, Casey Thompson, right? They're all running the same. They're all learning. They're in the same meeting rooms. They're learning the same plays. Whether one may benefit Arnold more than Hawkins, they all know it. So the playbook is always, when you install a lot of plays. Now, when it comes to game, you just pull out from those plays that you've learned what makes sense for that week based on what that defense is doing, right? So both quarterbacks, have plenty of plays to work through. At this point in the season and where we're at, I'd say it's try whatever we can try, right? I don't think there's any holding back. If we need to try to air it out more and just say, Hawkins, Arnold, take some shots, let's do that, right? But I don't think anything is off limits at this point. It's like, hey, let's find an identity. That there's still some mistakes and there's always going to be mistakes, but from young quarterbacks, and taking some losses that I've noticed here these last few weeks, some unnecessary losses, maybe not getting rid of the ball, things that are just mental mistakes that should be or could be handled to where we're not seeing those types of things, and then at the same time getting some receivers back, maybe some schematically that makes, I don't know if the O-line is getting confused or if they're just getting outmanned at times, but something that, maybe quicker reads for the quarterback to get the ball out of their hands, make them feel more comfortable, mixed in with some boots, getting out of side of the pocket, so try it all. There's nothing's off limits at this point. Let's figure out what works and do that. There's nothing that should be off limits, and
I agree.
they got to figure it out.
And that's why Saturday, that's why it was kind of shocking. I'm sure you thought the same thing as Michael. I'm not going to say he took a step back, but he just didn't seem like he was willing to take any chance down the field. I mean, 2 games ago, he's throwing his body into the end zone for a 2-point conversion when it's a 25-3 game it was, and he's throwing his body into the end zone. And Saturday, he's running out of bounds for a 5-yard loss on first down. And so do you think that's some kind of he's being told behind closed doors not to turn the ball over or not to take a loss, or
it's just OU Texas?
I know we're projecting and we're guessing here, but what do you think? Because there's obviously kind of mindset shift that happened in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's and I will say for Hawkins to go on the road, SEC, true freshman, and not turn the ball over, that was, kind of as I alluded to, the first one, versus Tennessee, that really kind of benched Arnold was the turnovers, right? If we can just maintain and not be smart with the ball, our defense is going to put us in good positions, right? And so I was very impressed with Hawkins, that very first game on the road at Auburn, which, for a freshman, as far as the intensity, couldn't be too far off with playing at Texas. I thought that was a great atmosphere for him to get his feet wet in that would get him ready for an environment like Texas. So, I think there was, there could have been, some jitters there. Again, it's a different atmosphere. There's a lot of hype going into it. Obviously, Texas is the top team in the country, but the mental mistakes were things that, I think shouldn't have been there, regardless of, even if you're a true freshman. There's things that even in high school you understand as a quarterback when it comes to taking losses and getting rid of the ball, and yeah, there was a lot of second and 12s and third and 13s.
Yeah.
And it's like there was a lot of we're going the wrong way type of thing. Again, credit to Texas. You do get some time, when you have a quarterback, there's a lot of film that defenses can break down, right? That Hawkins had from that Auburn game, from late in that Tennessee game. It's like, okay, here's some things that we can exploit, whether that is a robber, right? Having a linebacker that's just like, you're not going nowhere on third down, right? You're not pulling it down on second and long, right? So those were things that maybe Auburn didn't have access to, obviously, because they had minimal, film on him. So, Texas is a good team. They know he's a young guy. They know he's in an environment that he hasn't played in, and they did a great job of spying on him and making sure that he wasn't comfortable out there. And so you get uncomfortable as a quarterback, you make mistakes that you typically maybe don't make. So it'll be interesting to see how he bounces back from that.
Yeah, and in today's world, we got social media and there's all sorts of things to just add to the pressure and just the overwhelmingness of being a quarterback in a major university. When you were here, you actually, I think we were in the last years that we had open practice. Like open practice was a thing. So do you remember like a bunch of fans coming out and watching you when you did switch from receiver and took over for Bomar? Because that's just in-person pressure right there. It's almost like not a game day feel, but it adds an element to practice.
Yeah, it's funny, even like that's been so far removed. I forgot that even existed.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of that goes into it. When you're the man, as opposed to the relief valve, and everyone's cheering your name and clapping when you come in, right? That's short lived. When you're named the man, and so there's added pressure. There's there's expectations, especially when you do come in and play well. There's expectations for you to play just as good, if not better, right? And so when you go backwards for whatever reason, whether it's receivers, O-line, or just playing against a really, really good team, there's kind of some doubt. And then you throw in, the quarterback position is always wild, and it's unlike any other just because you just play one quarterback, right? So, most other positions, outside of it, there's, center, there's some other positions, but, you get options, running back, receivers, quarterback, you lock into one guy for the year outside of injury or horrible play, right? And so there's that dynamic too, right? When you're in meeting rooms and you have Jackson Arnold, who was initially the number one guy, he's right there on the sidelines with his mouthpiece in and his helmet on, right? And so there's those things that play in as well. They can make you tighten up a little bit, and that's just the nature of the game. The nature of being a quarterback is that you're a handful of plays away from who's the next guy. And so, there's just things that you have to handle. And, he's a true freshman, and he's shown signs of doing great things, as Jackson Arnold has as well. So it's just kind of navigating that and putting your best foot forward and eliminating some of the mental mistakes, the hurting ourselves mistakes, some of the offensive penalties, just from an offside standpoint. A lot of that times also goes back to the quarterback, on their cadence, on identifying defense and, calling out things, being consistent in how their cadence and play calling to eliminate, really emphasizing, hey, we're going on 2 here or whatever it may be, that eliminates some of those penalties that are putting us in, 2nd and 15. Yeah. So there's a lot to learn. Young quarterbacks, and I just know the fuse is short for this fan base.
I was gonna say that's what I was about to say. We've been very spoiled at the quarterback position for a very long time here, and so like you said, they'll clap very loud for you when when things are up, but you also hear the jeers are a little bit louder when you take a step back, and so that's why I try to cut everybody a little bit of slack at any position, but especially quarterback. But our fan base has became accustomed to just what quarterback you is what they call us. So it is what it is. Though. But that's heavy as the head that wears the crown. So
it's tainted the
Yeah.
view a little bit, I think, sometimes, and that's why it's kind of put the responsibility on the quarterback, which they do have a ton of responsibility. But the rest of the offense, I mean, it's all bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. It's all bad.
Yeah.
And so that's why
you can't pinpoint it on any single
correct.
person. Yeah, that's
Correct.
That's why.
But
it's hard.
we digress a little bit. A couple more questions, Paul. We're going to go back down to the good days, back to that, because I want to put a smile on my face. And so when you actually chose Oklahoma over Texas, is that correct? And was that some of that had to do with they were going to allow you to play quarterback? Was that a lot of contributed into your decision making?
Yeah. Grew up in Austin, Texas. So I was never a diehard Texas fan. Followed them, watched them. If I had a team that I was watching on Saturdays, it was going to be Texas. Obviously, that was just in my backyard, but didn't grow up going to games. My parents didn't go to UT or anything like that. So just a casual fan when it came to college football. And obviously, you had Ricky Williams running around and, some big names, Heisman winner there. And so, that's who I followed. But when it came to college, the only thing I knew about Oklahoma was one of my offensive coordinator is from Oklahoma, and that's all he was repping. He would rep Oklahoma. I'm like, I have no clue. And then Oklahoma ends up winning the national championship in 2000. So he's got Boomer. That's the first time I heard Boomer Sooner was on his phone. He's like playing Boomer Sooner from his phone. I'm like, what is even going on? Then it was just so ironic that they started knocking on the door. Bobby Jack Wright and Chuck Long, and your dad ended up coming down to Leander, Texas. But at the same time, I was being recruited by Texas, so I went to their camp. So this was the summer before my senior year. I went to Texas's camp, just a 5-day camp. Started the first 4 days off at quarterback, was throwing passes, working with the receivers and all that. The very last day, they're like, "Hey, we want to see you at receiver." And so I was like, no problem. Ran some routes at the receiver position, and the next day they offered me as a receiver. So Mac Brown and let's see, who was Greg? Trying to remember their OC. First name was Greg. I'm pretty sure. Their OC was there, and they said, "Hey, we love your athleticism. We love your leadership. We want you at receiver." Now I came out the same year as Vince Young, so can't blame him there, right? And so, I thought about it, like, man, I could stay right here in my backyard, play receiver. I'm just 30 minutes from the house. All my friends are here. Darrell K. Royal, phenomenal, stadium. But at the end of the day, I played high school quarterback, and OU was letting me know I could play quarterback, even though Jason White was there, Nate Hibbles, Hunter Wall was still there, Brent Rawls, Noah Allen. They still said they're going to give me an opportunity to play quarterback, and so even with all those names there, I said, man, let me head up north and play what I want to play. Didn't even know Norman was only 5 hours away. I had no clue where Norman, Oklahoma was. And so I ended up going on a official visit. Mark Clayton was my host.
Shout out, Mark.
I was like, yo, I could do this. And so ended up committing to the University of Oklahoma, and that was back in the day when a commitment actually meant something. And so ended up showing up, and the rest is history. So all 5 years right there in Norman, Oklahoma. But yeah, it was based on it. Really, what broke it down was being able to play quarterback and the opportunity to play quarterback.
Well, one last question. When we talked to Jason, when he came on the show, we asked him about AD, what it was like playing with him, crazy stories. Just, I don't know, it's a feel-good question for OU fan base. Everybody loves AD, but if you can kind of just talk about your experiences with him and, his superpowers.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I mean, it's 0% body fat, when he walked through the door, right? Just, you could see he looked like one of those museums where it's just no skin, right? It's just muscle.
Yep.
Because that's all you saw was quads and just abs and biceps as a freshman, as a true freshman, right? And so walked in, obviously played right away, and you knew So when we'd take reps as quarterbacks with our running backs, we'd run through different plays or whatever. You'd always have to take a peek back, especially on one of those stretch zone plays, make sure you had to see if AD was back there, because he would beat you to the line. You'd be running with the ball sticking out, and he would already be at the line of scrimmage. And so you would have to like get your left foot or your right foot like ready to run when you took the snap, because you just knew he was going downhill at 100 miles an hour. And so, you just saw it early. You just saw it very, very early. Was a workhorse for us, for the 3 years that he was there. That true freshman year, when he came in and, took us, helped us, get to a national championship, and he just played like a grown man from the get-go. And so you don't see many people like that come around that can just play at that level, at that speed. When it came to even Gasser, it was just running. His name was AD for a reason. I mean, he was just a natural runner, like a horse. Like he could just go.
Horsepower.
And so obviously ended up being one of the best, NFL running backs, one of the best collegiate running backs. I think, him getting hurt and still kind of weird. I'm like, wait, AD never won that almost seems weird that AD never won a Heisman.
People talk like he has.
Yeah, I know. It's like, wait a minute,
fan.
AD he never got one? It just seems like he has one. And so, but obviously went on to be one of the best NFL running backs ever, which is, just wild. Had a fairly long career as well, just being that he was a running back. That position doesn't last long at the NFL level, and just a testament to his work ethic and his conditioning.
Funny you mentioned Gassers, because when we had Jason on the show, he actually talked about the first time he saw AD. He came in like slides, long shorts, like a tank top, and he was like, "This guy's got to be a JUCO player." Yeah. And he was a true freshman, like 17-year-old, and he ran Gassers and like smoked everybody. Eventually fell out because he didn't know how to trim it down a little bit. Yeah. But he told that story, so it was funny you mentioned that.
Yeah, I think Sugar Bowl. I think we were at the Sugar Bowl. We were at the Sugar Bowl when he committed. I'm pretty sure. I got to get my bowls and my dates, but I'm pretty sure, because that had been my second year, and that was when he committed at the Army game. And so we have at the bowl games, you have your own, area in the hotels. Where, they got games for you. They got unlimited food and all that stuff.
The hospitality suite.
And the hospitality suite, right? And so it was crazy, right? They get mad at you for taking money, but all those companies, for bowl games, they can give you anything, you sweatsuits, toys, all that, for
electronics,
bowl games. But
everything.
You do anything outside of that, back then, and you were getting a slap on the wrist. But that's besides the point. But nonetheless, AD commits, and I don't think I ever heard Kevin Wilson scream so loud as when AD committed. I just heard this, yeah, from I don't know where, but it was Kevin Wilson, and he was screaming his head off when AD committed. I'm pretty sure that was the Sugar Bowl that week.
That would line up in dates wise.
Yeah, that does.
That's crazy. Yeah. Well, Paul, thanks for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you're going to make it down to a game again this year, maybe?
Yeah, we tried to with kids. So my son's 11. He just turned 12 yesterday. He's 12, basketball. My girls are soccer. So it is running around like crazy people pretty much. So weekends, if we get a later game, we can usually make it. The early games, the 11 o'clocks, like this upcoming weekend, are just too tough because we always got something going on in the mornings. And so my son loves it. We'll get on the field before the game and all that. He just loves it. So sometimes I'll even just take him to a practice if we can't get to a lot of games, just so we can, hang around the guys for a little bit.
For sure. Well, let us know if you make your way down here.
Yeah, we'd love to see you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no doubt.
Thanks, Paul. We appreciate it. For everybody watching, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That helps us help you. And we'll catch you next week with another edition of The Family Business. Remember to keep it in the family.